This is how smart people treat toxic people. A speech in the style of Marcus Aurelius. Fellow seekers of wisdom, reflect upon this. When fire consumes a thing, does it lament? When the sun is obscured by clouds, does it curse the heavens? The fire burns, the sun shines, and the wise man walks his path undisturbed. There are those whose words are daggers and whose presence is a storm. They bring discord, seek to poison the well of peace, and delight in stirring the minds of the unwary. But tell me, why should we offer them dominion over our thoughts? Would you hand the reins of your soul to one who knows not how to govern his own? A man who is wise does not rail against the viper for being venomous. He simply does not grasp it. He does not weep because the scorpion stings. He merely avoids its nest. So too must we deal with those whose nature is cruel, whose ways breed strife, not with anger, not with lamentation, but with the simple knowledge that such men and women exist, are no more surprising than the thorn upon the rose bush. What then shall we do? Shall we battle them? For to wage war upon folly is to let folly enter our hearts. Shall we plead with them? For wisdom is not forced upon the unwilling. Instead, let us stand firm, unshaken, like the great oak that neither bends for the wind nor stoops for the passing traveler. Let our minds be fortresses, our souls be calm waters. No insult should provoke, no deceit should ensnare. The true philosopher does not answer hatred with hatred but with indifference, for he knows that to be troubled by the actions of another is to give him power. And who among us will yield power over his mind to one unworthy? So remember this, just as the lion does not trouble himself with the chatter of the jackal, the wise do not burden their hearts with the deeds of the foolish. Walk your path with dignity, guard your mind as a sacred temple, and leave the petty quarrels to those who know no better. This is how the wise deal with the toxic, not with anger, not with sorrow, but with the serene knowledge that they are nothing to us. A wise man does not hand the reins of his mind to those who sow discord, nor does he allow the words of the ignorant to disturb the harmony within him. The mind is a fortress, and only a fool leaves its gates unguarded, allowing those unworthy to enter and cause destruction. The moment we allow in others malice, bitterness, or deceit to take root within us, we have surrendered a portion of ourselves to them. What is gained by this? Nothing but unrest. What is lost? Our peace, our clarity, our strength. A toxic person thrives not on their own strength but on the reactions they provoke in others. They seek to stir anger, plant doubt, and disturb the balance of those who strive for wisdom. But their power exists only in what we give them. If we are disturbed by their words, if we are enraged by their actions, then we have allowed them to shape our inner world. And why should they be granted such influence? Would we place an unskilled hand upon the rudder of a ship and expect it to find safe harbor? Then why should we let the unwise dictate the course of our emotions? To be truly strong is to be unshaken. The mind must be like a great mountain, unmoved by the winds of insult or the storms of cruelty. A toxic person may speak, may plot, may attempt to wound, but if their words find no place to root, they wither into nothing. Just as an echo fades if no one is there to listen, so too does the power of the toxic person vanish when met with indifference. The wise do not waste their breath railing against the wicked, they merely refuse to let the wicked touch their souls. Some may argue that to ignore insult is weakness, that to endure provocation without response is to be trampled upon. But tell me, who is stronger, the man who is provoked into fury by a child's taunts, or the one who laughs and walks away? Who is more powerful, the man who fights every battle that presents itself, exhausting himself on trivial conflicts, or the one who chooses his battles wisely, never allowing himself to be drawn into foolishness? The truly strong are those who understand that not every battle must be fought, and certainly not those waged by the unworthy. If a man throws stones at the sun, does the sun lower itself to strike back? If a dog barks at the sea, does the tide retreat in fear? The sun shines, the sea moves as it always has, and neither are diminished by the noise of lesser things. This is how the wise must be with those who seek to poison the spirit. The moment we react in anger, in distress, or in self-doubt, we have given them victory. But if we remain unmoved, if we refuse to let their words take hold, then they have nothing. Some will demand to be acknowledged. They will attempt to provoke, to force a reaction, to find cracks in your composure. But remember, their desperation for your attention is proof of their weakness. A man who is secure in himself does not chase conflict, does not seek to stir chaos in others. Only the weak and the lost do this, for they are restless within themselves. Pity them if you must, but do not lower yourself to their level. A toxic person only has as much power as they are given. If you do not feed their fire, it dies out. If you do not drink their poison, it does not affect you. Their weapons are only useful if you choose to stand in their path. The wise man steps aside, continues his journey, and leaves the unworthy behind. A man walking through a field does not curse the thorn for being sharp, nor does he rage at the viper for possessing venom. He does not waste his breath on resentment, he merely steps carefully, avoiding what would bring him harm. This is how the wise deal with those who bring discord and strife, not with hatred, not with wrath, but with understanding and distance. The nature of a thing cannot be changed by complaint. A thorn will not soften because one wishes it so. A viper will not be made harmless by pleading. Likewise, a person who spreads poison, who thrives on deception, who finds satisfaction in causing pain, such a person will not transform simply because one desires it. To entangle oneself with such people, hoping to change them, is to grasp the thorn and expect it not to pierce the flesh. The wise man knows better. He does not engage in fruitless struggle. He simply does not grasp the thorn at all. Some believe they must fight every injustice, challenge every insult, correct every wicked person they encounter. But tell me, does the traveler stop to wrestle every viper on the road, or does he step aside and continue his journey, unharmed and unburdened? The strong man is not the one who throws himself into every battle, but the one who understands which battles are worth fighting. Toxic people thrive on reaction. They seek to provoke, to ensnare, to draw others into their turmoil. When one responds with anger or indignation, they have already won, for they have achieved what they set out to do. They have taken a portion of another's peace. To avoid a toxic person is not cowardice, nor is it weakness. It is wisdom. When a man sees a storm on the horizon, he does not stand in its path and challenge the wind to break him. He finds shelter. When he comes across a well that is poisoned, he does not drink from it to prove his resilience. He moves on and seeks purer waters. There is no shame in preserving one's peace. There is no wisdom in willfully exposing oneself to harm. One must not mistake avoidance for hatred. To hate a viper for being venomous is foolish. It knows no other way to be. To despise a thorn for being sharp is senseless. It does not wound out of malice, but simply because it is its nature. So too, the wise man does not waste his energy despising those who are toxic. He understands them for what they are, troubled souls, governed by their own chaos. He neither condemns them nor entangles himself with them. He simply walks another way. It is not necessary to announce one's departure. A man who finds himself in a burning house does not stop to debate the merits of fire he leaves. A man who sees a crumbling bridge does not linger to argue with the falling stones. He turns and finds another path. Those who waste their breath on justifying their decision to distance themselves from toxic people are still trapped in the cycle of engagement. The truly wise do not explain, they do not justify. They simply remove themselves, without anger, without sorrow, without regret. To detach from the harmful does not mean to wish them ill. Just as a traveler avoids the viper not out of hatred but out of respect for its nature, so too must one separate from those who breed strife without wishing them harm. The wise understand that every man walks his own path. Some walk in peace, some in turmoil. It is not the duty of the wise to correct the course of every lost soul. It is only his duty to protect his own peace and continue forward. A fool thrives on conflict, not because he seeks truth but because he delights in chaos. He does not argue to learn but to exhaust, not to illuminate but to confuse. To battle such a person is to step into quicksand. Every movement only pulls one deeper into the trap. The wise man does not waste his strength fighting a battle that cannot be won, nor does he plead with those who refuse to listen. He understands that his energy is precious, that his peace is sacred, and that some minds are closed not by ignorance but by choice. Indifference is the shield of the wise. When faced with insult, deception, or provocation, the fool reacts, the weak become wounded, but the wise remain unmoved. A raging fire cannot consume a stone. An arrow aimed at the sky will never strike the sun. So too, the words and actions of toxic people hold no power over those who refuse to be affected. To react is to feed their hunger for control. To argue is to give them the engagement they crave. But to meet their malice with silence, to allow their provocations to fall upon deaf ears, is to deny them the victory they seek. A man who argues with a fool is like one who shouts into the wind, hoping to be heard. No matter how sound his reasoning, his words will be scattered, lost in the emptiness of an unwilling mind. And when he pleads for understanding, he does not uplift himself, for he lowers himself, placing his peace in the hands of one who does not value it. The wise man knows this and refuses to engage. He does not demand recognition, nor does he seek validation from those who do not understand the worth of wisdom. To be indifferent is not to be weak. It is not cowardice to walk away from senseless quarrels, nor is it submission to refuse to entertain the words of a fool. True strength lies in restraint, in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, when to act and when to turn away. The greatest warriors are not those who fight every battle but those who choose their battles with wisdom. A man who strikes at every barking dog will never know peace. A man who answers every insult with anger will never find stillness within himself. A fool will seek to provoke, to ensnare with words that inflame the temper and cloud the mind. If he succeeds, he is satisfied, for he has drawn another into his world of disorder. But when met with indifference, he is left powerless. His insults, his deceit, his attempts at manipulation, they crumble before the unmoved spirit of the wise. Like a wave crashing against a cliff, they make noise but leave no mark. The wise man does not fight the wave, he lets it break and pass. Some will argue that silence is surrender, that to refuse to engage is to accept defeat. But what greater victory is there than to remain at peace while the foolish rage? What greater power is there than to be untouched by the weapons of the unwise? The fool desires control over another's emotions, but when he finds no foothold, when his words stir no anger, when his actions fail to disrupt, he is left with nothing. The wise man, meanwhile, walks on, unburdened, undefeated. A fool seeks attention. He thrives on reaction. He stirs conflict not for resolution but for the pleasure of discord. To battle him is to play his game, and to plead with him is to grant him power. The truly wise give him neither. They do not fight, nor do they beg. They simply allow the fool to be a fool and move forward with their own purpose, untouched and undisturbed. A wise man does not tremble when the wind howls, nor does he break when the storm rages. He stands firm, rooted deeply in his understanding, unmoved by the shifting tempests of the world. To be disturbed by the words of the foolish, to be shaken by the deceit of the unworthy, is to grant them a power they do not deserve. The wise man knows this and remains steady, neither rising in anger nor sinking in despair, for he understands that the insults of a lesser man do not diminish his worth, nor does deception alter the truth. Toxic people seek to unbalance, to provoke, to ensnare others in their turmoil. They spread falsehoods, manipulate emotions, and lash out with words designed to wound. But their success depends entirely on the response they receive. If a man allows an insult to stir his temper, if he lets a lie disturb his mind, then he has given his peace away freely. The wise man does not allow this. He understands that the words of another hold no weight unless he chooses to carry them. He hears the insults, sees the deceit, but remains as he is, a whole, unshaken, and at peace. A tree does not bend itself to answer the demands of the wind. It does not waste its energy swaying to appease a storm that will soon pass. So too, the wise man does not chase the approval of those who seek to undermine him. He does not engage in the petty battles of the insecure, nor does he waste his breath defending himself against those who twist truth to suit their desires. He knows his own mind, and that is enough. The opinions of the ignorant, the schemes of the malicious, the judgments of those who do not understand, they are nothing more than passing winds against his unyielding form. Many believe that strength lies in retaliation, that to let an insult pass unanswered is to accept defeat. But what victory is won by responding to foolishness with more foolishness? What strength is gained by allowing another's deceit to dictate one's actions? True power is in restraint, in knowing that not every battle must be fought, and that silence is often the greatest answer to a meaningless attack. The wise man is not controlled by the emotions of others. He does not rise and fall with their approval or disapproval. He remains as he is, unchanged by the noise around him. There are those who will twist words, who will seek to harm through dishonesty, who will disguise their malice with false concern. But deception is powerless against the man who refuses to be deceived. Insults are useless against the man who does not take offense. A toxic person thrives on reaction, but when their efforts meet only stillness, when their words fall upon an unshaken mind, they wither into nothingness. The wise man does not need to silence his enemies, he only needs to refuse them space within his thoughts. Some will mistake his calm for indifference, his silence for weakness. But what is truly weak are being controlled by every passing insult, or remaining steady no matter what is said. What is truly strong, lashing out in anger, or walking away in peace. The wise man does not explain himself to those who twist his words, nor does he seek to correct those who are determined to misunderstand. He knows that his truth does not need the approval of those who refuse to see it. The wise do not waver before the storm, nor do they break before the weight of deceit. They remain unmoved, not because they do not feel, but because they choose not to be ruled by the lesser nature of others. They understand that dignity is not found in endless battles, but in the quiet certainty of one's own worth. They walk forward, untouched by the storms around them, knowing that only the unwise allow themselves to be carried away by the wind. Strength is not found in loud displays of power, nor in the ability to crush one's enemies with force. True strength is quiet, steady, and unwavering. It is the ability to guard one's peace, to refuse to be drawn into the chaos of others, and to walk forward with dignity, untouched by the noise of the world. The wise man understands that not every battle is worth fighting, not every insult deserves a response, and not every challenge must be met with resistance. His power lies in his restraint, in his refusal to be controlled by those who seek to disturb his spirit. Toxic people thrive on reaction. They seek to provoke, to draw others into conflict, to steal the peace of those around them. They take pleasure in stirring anger, in creating doubt, in watching others lose control. But their success depends entirely on the willingness of others to engage with them. A man who guards his peace does not allow himself to be pulled into their games. He does not respond to insults with anger, nor does he seek to justify himself before those who twist his words. He understands that his dignity is worth more than proving himself to people who do not deserve his energy. To walk one's path with dignity is to refuse to lower oneself to the level of the foolish. It is to rise above pettiness, to remain steady in the face of provocation, to meet hostility with indifference. The truly strong do not need to shout to be heard, nor do they need to fight to prove their worth. They simply exist in their own truth, unshaken by the noise around them. When a toxic person tries to stir conflict, they find no foothold. When they seek to plant doubt, they find no soil in which to grow their poison. The wise man's mind is a fortress, guarded not by aggression but by unwavering peace. Many mistake peace for weakness. They believe that to walk away from conflict is to surrender, that to remain silent in the face of insult is to accept defeat. But what greater victory is there than to remain untouched while others waste their energy in fruitless battles? What greater power is there than to refuse to let another's actions dictate one's own? A man who reacts to every provocation is a slave to the emotions of others. A man who chooses his responses wisely is in control of himself. That is true strength. Toxic people do not understand dignity, for they have none of their own. They seek to drag others into the mud, to make them react, to see them lose their composure. But when met with stillness, with calm, with indifference, they are left powerless. Their weapons are useless against the man who does not allow himself to be wounded. Their traps fail when he simply refuses to step into them. The wise man does not need to fight, he only needs to remain as he is, unshaken and untouchable. To guard one's peace is not to avoid all conflict, but to choose one's battles with wisdom. It is to know when to speak and when to remain silent, when to stand firm and when to walk away. The strongest man is not the one who fights the most, but the one who knows when fighting is unnecessary. The man who holds on to his dignity, who refuses to be pulled into the pettiness of others, who walks his own path without seeking the approval of those who do not matter, he is the one who possesses true strength. A toxic person only has power over those who allow it. The wise man denies them that power, not with anger, not with argument, but with the quiet certainty of his own worth. He does not need validation, nor does he seek revenge. He simply continues on his way, at peace with himself, untouched by the storms of lesser men.